CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.
But as we said, Damien O'Connor is wired, technically available on the show. Thank you, sir, for coming straight off the tiles of Parliament and into CountryWide Connect.
You were much flashier when I saw you on the live stream, Damien. Have you dressed down for us, have you?
Well, I took my jacket off, Andy. Sorry about that. To try to be a bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. Hey, look, in a major announcement this morning, and this is very good timing, Damien, and thank you so much for making yourself available, because I know this is a big deal. In one of the most significant trade deals for decades, Labor leader Chris Luxon, get that right, God, Chris Hipkins, sorry about that, has confirmed.
I'm not sure that we said it's one of the most significant in decades. Andy, you're running away with yourself there. It's a good step forward, and it's one that has to be closely scrutinised. And I've spoken to some of the sector leaders about the cloud that hangs over this FTA, and it is a judgment in 15 years' time as to whether governments, because there'll be a few of them in that 15 years, whether they've done enough to promote the target of 20 billion US. So that's about 33 billion New Zealand dollars. So, it's quite an ambitious, if not unrealistic target. We've got to say that it's hopefully achievable, because the Indians have put it in the agreement, but it's a long way to go.
Damien, I guess the issue of that is it has been called aspirational. Both Todd McClay and the Indians said it's aspirational. Does Labor kind of disagree with that terminology?
It's not what the Indian Trade Minister said within India. So, the judgment will be made by them in the future. So, of course, it's aspirational. And the thing is that, look, that wasn't the only aspect of this agreement. We had Winston Peters saying this was going to flood the country with migrants from India and all the rest of it. Completely untrue. We had a responsibility to go through and understand the advice and the lead up to that. We got a cabinet paper on Monday. It's been a bit frustrating for us. Some of the advice we asked for 3 months ago has been dribbled out. And, I think there are many people would expect the opposition, to scrutinise these things. We weren't part of the negotiation. We weren't part of, as I say, we didn't have that information early on. But we've got to the point now. It's not perfect. We said that right from the start. It's a good step forward. It's now up to us to make use of the opportunities, but be aware of, as I say, that one little cloud ahead of us.
Okay, so what would you have done if you had the time leading into the signing and the crucialness of the rhetoric that it sends globally and the message out there, particularly, Damien, to our competitive markets who are in a rush to sign as well? How would you have handled it differently if you're the Minister of Trade? I guess if we'd had notice within our government that our coalition partner wasn't going to support us, we would have reached out to look, we've had a great bipartisan approach to trade, but we weren't aware of that process that Winston had decided not to vote for it. It wasn't until after it was announced, and then he said, I'm not voting for it. So then the government had to scramble to try and connect with us and explain to us the rationale for the decisions on each of the areas around migration, around education, around each of the primary sectors, the absence of dairy, and we knew that would be a challenge. There's a little window of opportunity for dairy there. I spoke with people. I suspect that if it had been us negotiating it, it would have been you and many others criticising us for the absence of dairy and saying it's not a comprehensive trade agreement without dairy. That's been the approach that New Zealand has taken in the past, but we've accepted that even in the absence of dairy, this is a step forward. We just have to make sure that the steps forward in those other areas aren't removed by a decision by the Indian government in 15 years.
Damien, how realistic was it, though, that the Labor Party wouldn't support an FTA deal with India? Was it a little bit of politics going on?
No, it wasn't. People have an expectation that the opposition holds the government to account. There was no dairy in this. There was an aspirational, is the nice word, for an investment agreement. There had unfortunately been a commitment by the Prime Minister or the leader of the opposition at the time that the deal would be done within 3 years. Constraining yourself in a time period like that does mean that you're disadvantaged when it comes to negotiation. Now, luckily or not, I'd say not luckily, but anyway, along rides Mr. Trump, and of course slaps tariffs on everyone and anyone. And of course I think that encouraged the Indians to reach out and have sound agreements with trusted partners like New Zealand. They've got one with Australia. And so that's where I think the officials and the government did a really good job to leap into that opportunity.
Damien, do you have faith that the WTO has any might left in 15 years to actually uphold any of this?
We do have to hope so. Otherwise, it will be chaos. And as a trading nation, we'll be in a lot more trouble than just with the India FTA.
Damien, just on the immigration, it was one of the issues that obviously New Zealand First, and I heard Chris Hipkins in his live address this morning say it was out and out racist, some of the comments that are being made. But Labor did have some concerns on that, particularly with the migrant labour. Have those concerns been addressed as to your satisfaction?
It was the protections for them. This government has reduced funding for the Labour Inspectorate. It's reduced funding across all areas of worker protection in this country. In fact, they're passing legislation to remove rights to workers. And then you had a claim by Winston Peters that the market was going to be flooded. We just wanted to make sure that it won't be flooded, and it's probably within the number of migrant workers from India that come in now. They will have guaranteed work permits under TEE. We just wanted to make sure that by bringing them in, we weren't exposing them to worker exploitation. That has happened in the past. Same thing happened with students. We needed to get an assurance that, because it was under the last national government where Indian and other students came into this country and they were going to shoddy courses and just going out into the workforce to try and get residency. If they come in for education, they deserve, because they paid a lot of money often, they deserve to get good quality education and be looked after. We needed to make sure that was going to happen.
Winston's playing Winston, Damien, at the moment, and potentially throwing out the concept that he could work with Labor again. Do you think that's a reality that Labor will have him back?
Don't ask me to explain Winston's statements on anything, really. This is leading up to election time. It's a bit sad because, they made noises about straightening out the supermarkets. Shane's done this time and time again. They're making them again. About the electricity sector. It's all rant and rave and not much reality.
Silly season coming up, Damien, isn't it? Election. I mean, all bets are off, basically.
Yeah, but I think, people have to be able to, and people are really busy, they're under a lot of pressure, and it's going to be hard work for them to look below the headlines and to do the investigation on the individual standing and on the policies to make sure that whoever gets voted in as a government next time, is going to do a better job for New Zealand. And, the reality is that actually we've got more debt now, we've got high levels of unemployment, and we've got a downgrade in our rating. So the current government hasn't done a great economic job.
I have a really random left field question for you, Damien, one of my pearlers. But I've been enjoying Phil Goff and Chris Finlayson's new podcast, Post Politics.
Yep.
When you're post politics, which former national minister would you do a podcast with?
Question.
Look, interesting question. Actually,
really good question.
That one. Look, there are many that I get on fine with, and I've had dealings with them, and we just come back from a trip to China, actually with Jerry Brownlee. Barbara Kruger was there, Tiana Tuiono. So it was representing the government into the biggest single market that we rely on. And so it was important to go there, wave the flag. Look, I get on fine with all of those people, but in the end, it's we have a contest. It's a healthy contest in democracy, and this is the year.
I've got an idea. David Carter.
Well, yeah.
And Damien O'Connor.
We both went to the same school. We might be a bit boring. I think you've got to have a bit of, a bit healthy
tension. What about me? Would you do one with me, Damien? That could be fun.
Happy to do. I do it all the time, Andy.
Yes.
I know.
Look, I want to acknowledge what you're doing, and I think you do have to get people who have different perspectives, because healthy debate, as Andy knows, he's kind of grown up in an area, where my ancestors came from. That healthy debate was part of strengthening our communities, all nodding our heads and thinking we think the same way, as happens in some rural communities, is not healthy.
100%. Thank you so much, Damien O'Connor, tradesperson for trade from the Labor Party, following the Labor call and Mr Hipkins announcements.
No, not Luxton, as I said.
Not Luxton. Throwing their support behind the India FTA.
CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.